that didn't last very long.
I just got here.
The Carolina Panthers have fired Frank Reich after just 11 games. That's all. Carolina is an NFL worst 1-10, and they have been terrible. They have been hard to watch all season long, and honestly, it's just felt like it keeps getting worse. And to make things even worse, they don't have a first-round pick. There are clearly teams out there tanking at least a little bit, like the Patriots, trying to get maybe a higher pick, just look absolutely terrible. The Panthers have nothing to gain here, dude. They are a bad football team without a first-round pick that just cannot win. And there's no point in tanking. They want to win. They traded their 2024 first overall pick to move up and take Bryce Young, first overall at the draft, who has really struggled as a rookie so far. I do think things look a lot worse for Bryce Young just because of how good CJ Stroud has been. I think it makes him look a little worse. A lot of rookies do end up struggling, but yeah, it hasn't been pretty for Bryce Young at the same time. He has just 9 touchdowns and 8 interceptions this season. They took this kid first overall, and look, he still has a lot of potential. I want to make that very clear. He's been put in a very tough situation. He doesn't have a lot of good offensive weapons. His offensive line's terrible. The coaching has obviously been questionable. That's why Frank Reich's now gone. He hasn't been good, but he still has a lot of potential. We just really haven't seen a lot of it this season. But at the end of the day, the number one priority for the Panthers is Bryce Young, and essentially having him develop. If coaching is not doing that, then the Panthers need to suck it up and they need to try again. Now, I will admit, I thought Frank Reich was going to be great in Carolina. I thought it was a great hire. I loved it. I thought it was going to be great for Bryce Young and his development. Just, it seemed like the right move. And of course, hindsight's always 2020. Now you look back on it, and David Tepper is going to get a lot of heat, and he should. The roster management around this team has been terrible, but I still did think Frank Reich was the guy. And even now, I really don't think they should have fired him after just 11 games. I had high hopes for Frank Reich, and just clearly I was wrong. Now, Frank Reich has had a good amount of success in the NFL as a coach. Now, not necessarily as a head coach, but definitely as a coach. He was the Chargers offensive coordinator and worked alongside Phillip Rivers. And then, I mean, he had Carson Wentz having an MVP level season before he got hurt in 2017. That was the same year the Eagles won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. And then finally, after all that success in Philadelphia, he finally got his name called and became a head coach with the Colts. He was there for 4.5 years. The Colts won a single playoff game, and they did have a winning record in 3 of his 4 seasons, which honestly, for the situation he was put in, I think was kind of impressive. I think a lot of the problems Frank Reich had in Indy were all just because of quarterback. When he got to the Colts, he was supposed to have a franchise quarterback in Andrew Luck. That was what he was supposed to have for his entire tenure there, and they were going to be able to figure things out. Luck came back. He won Comeback Player of the Year in that first year back, the first year under Frank Reich, and then he retired out of nowhere. And instead of having Andrew Luck, Frank Reich had a different starting quarterback in each 5 of his seasons. Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and Matt Ryan. That was a tough situation to be in as a head coach. And honestly, bringing in washed veterans every offseason certainly is a very weird decision. Now, I thought, because of how much turmoil there was at quarterback in Indy, that if the Panthers could get a quarterback actually figured out, like Bryce Young was, maybe Frank Reich would figure it out. Now, still, there were a lot of problems that I just think went past his control. If you ask me what the number one problem is in Carolina, it wasn't Frank Reich. It's David Tepper, the owner. The Panthers are about to have their 6th straight losing season since he bought the team. After that long Ron Rivera era, they ended up moving on to Matt Rule. That didn't work at all. Frank Reich was supposed to be the next guy, and now we're at full disaster once again. Now, there have been a lot of rumors that Frank Reich preferred CJ Stroud over Bryce Young at the draft, but David Tepper wanted Bryce Young. Now, who knows the validity of that? I don't know. Reich would definitely never have admitted that as the Panthers head coach. You know, he's Bryce Young's guy. You got to keep that kid confident. But if that's true, that's huge. And just to add salt to the wound, the Panthers sent away 2 first-round picks to move up to first overall for Young. And they gave up DJ Moore. Wide receiver has been a huge problem in Carolina, and they sure could use a guy like DJ Moore. To make things even worse, that pick is currently first overall, and it's the Bears. That could very well end up being Caleb Williams or Drake May, 2 of the top quarterbacks in this year's class that honestly I think are better prospects than Bryce Young was coming out of Alabama. Now, of course, hindsight's always 20/20, but it seems like at every move, the Panthers had made the wrong decision. I mean, this is just piss poor roster management, and David Tepper, just to be honest, needs to keep his nose out of things. It's the same thing I saw with Dan Snyder for so long that hurt Washington for so many years, and it's what Jerry Jones continues to plague the Cowboys with and try to hold them back with. You hire people for a reason. Hire your experts and let them control the team. The owner should not be making roster decisions like that. The bottom line is, I really do think David Tepper is the big problem in Carolina. And when the owner is the issue, you're not going to be set up for success in the future. It's only been 6 years, but it's been a very bad 6 years. And it makes me wonder if he's going to hold this franchise back. Ultimately, I wonder how much success the Panthers are going to be able to have with whatever coach they have if he is still the owner. Now, you really do have to just sit back and wonder how attractive of a job the Panthers is going to be for a new head coach. You don't have a first round pick. They don't have a good offensive line. There's no good offensive weapons on the roster, and their young quarterback hasn't been very good. You would have at least hoped that that was going to be your building block, but even he's struggled. You know, there's going to be a lot of other teams that are going to have head coach vacancies, and I just don't think Carolina is a very attractive option, especially when you throw in the incompetency of David Tepper. So we're going to have to see where Carolina goes at head coach in the offseason, but until then, Chris Tabor is going to be the interim head coach. He's been the Panthers special teams coordinator since 2022, and he was actually the special teams coordinator for the Bears and the Browns before he came to Carolina. His last time serving as a head coach was at Culver Stockton College in 2001. That is a small NAIA liberal arts college in Canton, Missouri. I had never heard of it. That was straight off Wikipedia right there. Looking forward now, truly the only thing that matters for the rest of this season is the development of Bryce Young. You just really have to hope that you're going to see a little bit more out of him now. There's been a lack of development when it comes to him this season, and that's probably the big reason why Frank Reich got fired. Meanwhile, it feels like CJ Stroud has just been getting better every single week. Now, maybe the Panthers are going to rally around each other after the firing. I don't know. Certainly teams like the Giants, Commanders, and Patriots hope so, and they can run together a couple wins, and maybe they can jump the Bears when it comes to the draft order. Bryce Young is obviously learning. I mean, he's going to need time, so just let him keep getting those reps in. Obviously, that team around him is not very good, but let him continue to learn. Hopefully you get a couple wins in there. It's not like you're tanking for a high pick, so it doesn't really matter. I will say, I do still like Bryce Young. It's only been 11 games this season. Just calm down. He was the first overall pick for a reason. I think the vast majority of teams would have taken him first overall if they had the pick. It has been very bad, but you know what? We saw the same thing with Trevor Lawrence. They got Urban Meyer out of there. Doug Peterson came in, and all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence was fantastic, even though he is having a bit of a down year again. Bryce Young is a guy I expect to turn everything around. I think he can be a good pro. I'm not saying he's going to be better than CJ Stroud. I think Stroud is fantastic, and he's already proven that, but I do think Bryce Young is going to be just fine. The Panthers truly are just an absolute disaster in every way at this point. Bad ownership, no head coach, struggling young quarterback, a bad offense around him. But here's the good news, right? The only way the Panthers can go now is up. they're 1-10. They're the worst team in football. It's really hard to see it get any worse than what it is right now. It's time to go back to the drawing board and just hope that whoever Carolina ends up hiring in the offseason can develop Bryce Young, because Frank Reich just wasn't the answer, and that's why he's already been fired after 11 games. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Let me know down below what you think of the Frank Reich firing. Do you think he should have been fired? Do you think they probably should have waited a little bit like I really do? Let me know down below. If you don't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you don't already, follow us on social media at JDProdNFL and follow me on Instagram, Twitter at DIIDLAKE. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.